I'm going to read a brief article that I put together about the symbolism of the sphenoid bone, the monarch butterfly, the sacred owl, the moloch, Luna moth, and some other symbolism that came to me in a synchronicity, in a very synchromistic occurrence. So I'm going to go over some of the key points of the article, and I'll try and keep it brief and to the point and just highlight the syncs. The sphenoid bone is situated in the middle of the skull in front of the temporal bone.
Other bones become more visible only when looking inside the skull. The sphenoid bone makes up the anterior base of the cranium. It is a butterfly-shaped bone with a central body and two pair of laterally projecting wings. These wings form portions of the orbit. The body of the sphenoid features a depression known as the sella turcica, which houses the pituitary gland. Located between the orbits, the ethmoid bone makes up a portion of the cranial floor and also the roof of the nasal cavity. An inferior projection, the perpendicular plate of the ethmoid bone, forms part of the nasal septum. The crista galli projects superiorly from the ethmoid bone and serves as the attachment point for the falx cerebri, a dural fold. Extending laterally from the crista galli is the cribriform plate, a perforated area through which the olfactory nerves pass. The two L-shaped palatine bones form the posterior third of the hard palate, part of the nasal cavity, and a portion of the orbit. The small, thin lacrimal bones make up the anterior portion of the medial wall of each orbit. A groove known as the lacrimal groove helps to form the nasolacrimal canal, which contains a duct that allows tears to travel to the nasal cavity. The vomer is an elongated, plow-shaped bone that forms the inferior and posterior part of the nasal septum. The internal and external skull bones articulate precisely, forming an intricate structure perfectly suited to its functions.
Its shape somewhat resembles that of a monarch butterfly or a moth, or an owl, or a bat with its wings extended. It consists of two greater wings on the lateral side of the body and two lesser wings on the anterior side. The owl is a symbol of wisdom because its traits represent the ability to see in the dark when the light has gone. It's a predator or a raptor, which is linked etymologically to rapture because it carries off its prey, which is the very definition and the etymological essence of the word rapture or raptor. They can be called the watchers because the owl watches its prey from above and sees from a higher perspective than the blind mice down below, who can't perceive from the higher perspective that the owl can see. This is why the owl is often depicted on clocks and watchtowers, because they are the watchers. It remains ever watchful and vigilant during the dark night.
Holy shit.
Speaking of the dark night, the bat, like the owl, is nocturnal and is capable of seeing in the dark, and perceiving beyond what the two eyes can sense, thanks to its echolocation, using sound to catch its prey. The moth, also like the owl and the bat, also sees in the dark, and is associated with the perception of light, which is the same function as the sphenoid region of the skull, which registers and perceives the perception of sensory input through the optic nerves, which run through the sphenoid region of the bone. The Luna moth is a lime green Saturnid moth in the family Saturnidae, subfamily Saturninae. It's the symbol used to advertise the sedative pharmaceutical drug Lunesta. They chose the symbol for the drug because it represents the area of the brain that regulates sleep, consciousness, and motor function. The sphenoid supports the temporal, or the temple, region of the brain, and the optic thalamus, which is responsible for relaying of sensory and motor signals to the cerebral cortex, and the regulation of consciousness, sleep, alertness, and the circadian rhythms. The temporal bone is involved in processing sensory input and designating meanings for the retention of visual memories, language comprehension, and emotion association. The sphenoid bone houses the pituitary gland, which is known as the master gland of the endocrine system. Hormones secreted from the pituitary gland help control growth, blood pressure, certain functions of the sex organs, the thyroid glands, and metabolism, as well as some aspects of pregnancy, childbirth, nursing, water salt concentration, and pain relief, just to name a few. So it controls all the other glands in the body through the hormone production. It's known as the master gland. It's the very foundation for the operation and the function of the human psyche, or the mind. Our sense of self in relation to the stimuli of our environment, which is perceived through our senses, which we'll discuss further on. The butterfly is the symbol of transformation, as well as transformation of the psyche. It depicts the life cycle of death and rebirth by metamorphosis, becoming an entirely new self by the end of the process. Thus, it's the symbol of the Greek goddess named Psyche, whose color is purple or violet. The Rorschach inkblot test is a psychological test in which subjects' perceptions of ink blots are recorded and then analyzed using psychological interpretation, complex algorithms, or both. Some psychologists use this test to examine a person's personality characteristics, emotional functioning, and mental health. It's been employed to detect the underlying thought disorders, or supposedly thought thereof. How effective or accurate it is, I'm very skeptical. But notice the shape of these inkblot tests, how they're using the bilateral symmetry, which is the very structure of the human skull, of the human anatomy, which is involved with the perception, the human perception. How do you perceive the bilateral symmetry? What can you see? Everything we sense visually in order to perceive this reality passes through the sphenoid bone. It is the gateway or the doorway to the mind. If our senses and perception can be manipulated with media and stimuli, propaganda, such as music, movies, Hollywood, advertisements, marketing, and everything else put out for us as tools of propaganda to persuade our perception, to control our mind, to control what we perceive to be real and true. I posit would be exactly why the Moloch owl and the monarch butterfly, as well as the Luna moth, are chosen symbols of iconography by the elite elders such as the Illuminati, used in the Bohemian Grove, where we find the Moloch owl in the cremation of care rituals. Same thing with the White House layout. Again, we find the Moloch owl, the belly of the beast. We find the Moloch owl in synagogues, churches, Masonic institutions, and other architectural organizations. MKUltra and Project Monarch. Monarch programming is a method of mind control used by numerous organizations for covert purposes. It's a continuation of Project MKUltra, a mind control program developed by the CIA and tested on military and civilians. The methods are astonishingly sadistic. Its entire purpose is to traumatize the victim.
I began to feel really sick. But I could not shut my glasses. And even if I tried to move my glass balls about, I still could not get out of the line of fire of this picture.
Get me up. I want to be sick. Get something for me to be sick in.
Very soon now, the drug will cause the subject to experience a death-like paralysis, together with deep feelings of terror and helplessness.
I can't stand it.
One of our early test subjects described it as being like death, a sense of stifling or drowning. And it is during this period we have found the subject will make his most rewarding associations between his catastrophic experience of environment and the violence he sees.
Sleeping glasses!
And the expected results are the creation of a mind-controlled slave who can be triggered at any time to perform any action required by the handler.
How do you feel, Derek?
Okay. When's the seaweed wrap?
You shut up now. I want you to relax and breathe deeply. Breathe deeply.
I like this song.
Of course you do.
Hello, Derek.
Hello.
Welcome to your relaxation time. Let this wonderful 80s classic soothe you. Just a nice, warm, happy time. happy, happy, happy. Ha 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 ha. Nothing to worry about at all. Just relax. Hey there, Derek. My name is Little Cletus. I'm just a regular kid who wants you to know the real truth about child labor laws, okay?
Okay.
They're silly and outdated. In the good old days, kids as young as 5 could work as they pleased, from textile factories to iron smelts. Yippee, hooray! But today, the age-old right of children to work is under attack. From the Philippines to Bangladesh, in China and India, and South America too. Boo-hoo! But you can help these children, Derek, by killing the Prime Minister of Malaysia. He is bad.
What?
You learned martial arts! Prime Minister of Malaysia, bad! Martial arts, good! Kill naughty man! Kill naughty man! Obey my dog! On the runway, you have one objective. Do not be distracted by the beautiful celebrities. Do as you've been trained to do, and kill the Malaysian Prime Minister! Karate chop! Bad man! Awful man! In your little blue suit and your spiky black hair. Yeah. You're a super hot ninja machine!
While mass media ignores this issue, over 2 million Americans have gone through the horrors of this program, and the United States government has even openly issued reprimands to the families of the victims of these government programs. We're going to look at some of the methods and the symbolism. Monarch programming is a mind control technique comprising of elements of satanic ritual abuse and multiple personality disorder. It utilizes a combination of psychology, neuroscience, occult rituals to create within the slave an alter persona that can be triggered and programmed by the handlers through the use of symbols, language, sound, colors. Anything can be a trigger to someone who has been ritually abused in Project Monarch.
Make me sick to my stomach, Jacko.
It'll all be over soon. Derek Zuland will be dead, and you'll be fine. You always are.
Come on, Derek, you're on.
Wiggle it, Derek.
I've done this 1,000 times.
The trigger is...
Concentrate, derelict. Do not be distracted by the beautiful celebrities. Do as you've been trained to do, and kill the Malaysian Prime Minister!
The video that she actually made where she is performing what is known as the death dance. She is performing the death dance of Kali. So if you've watched my videos over the years, you'll know that I've actually exposed this Kali dance before when I showed Obama on the cover of Newsweek doing his Black Kali death dance. And of course that's why the Karate Kid also performed the dance of death. And of course that's why she's wearing the Kali sweatshirt. And you'll notice that it's black, which is the color of what Kali means. It means the black one, the one of death. So Beyonce is actually doing this death dance ritual of Kali because she is celebrating something. Thus, the death dance of Kali is in celebration of her victory over her opponent. And if you watched Alice in Wonderland, when Alice slayed the head off of the Jabberwocky, then the Mad Hatter did the victory dance of death. So of course this is why the Queen keeps saying off with his head, thus decapitating the old season and making way for the new season, which is why the crown passes from the Red Queen to the White Queen, from summer to winter. So this is why Kali has the decapitated head, because her opponent has been decapitated and she now rules. So this is the whole meaning of God and the word deity. It's talking about two, because this is the division of life, of day and night, winter and summer, the division. See, it's called the Danse Macabre, the dance of the dead. So the ancients believed that these times of even, of the equinox, were thin lines between the realms of the past and of the future, from this world to another world. That's why Jesus speaks in parables. So the ancient dance of death, or the Danse Macabre, is basically symbolism of the actual seasons going to the underworld during the ember months, which starts in September, when the sun is in its ember state. So you have been around the symbolism of the circle dance of death, or the macabre dance of death, and you just didn't know it. So many stories and many Hollywood films and videos depict this dance of death. And of course, notice the Masonic black and white floor. And the decapitation. And we've been watching it since we were kids, and we didn't even know it. The wonderful world of Disney, making sure that children were indoctrinated with the knowledge of the dance of death. Of course, this is also connected with Halloween in Night of the Walking and the Night of the Living Dead. Like I said, when the two realms are very thin, so therefore the dead and the living cross over, which is symbolic of life having victory over death, thus the death dance. So Beyonce is performing the Kali dance known as the Tendava, which is a violent, evil dance, thus the offerings of the blood sacrifice.
Just do it already.
Divas, I got your back!
What? It's that damn Hansel. He's so hot right now.
Poppin' and locking, fool!
They're breakdance fighting.
Derek Zoolander just tried to kill the Prime Minister of Malaysia.
Monarch slaves are used by several organizations connected to the world's elite in fields such as the military, sex slavery, child trafficking, and the entertainment industry. MK stands for mind control, spelled with a K, which is German, which comes from Nazi Germany during the Auschwitz experiments of World War I. The Nazi scientists involved with Project MK Ultra were pardoned and thereby recruited by the CIA after the war in what was declassified as Project Paperclip. Project MK Ultra focused on drugs, specifically LSD. The CIA wanted to use LSD as a weapon. The CIA studied hundreds of other drugs besides LSD, as well as experimenting with radiation, electroshock, psychology, sociology, anthropology, psychiatry, harassment, substances, and paramilitary devices and materials. They tested on many hospital patients, volunteers, mostly students. They tested on inmates who were usually paid for their participation with the drugs, and eventually anyone the CIA could get their hands on.
Gentlemen, I am neither a politician nor a soldier. I am a scientist, but I do understand how delicate the situation is.
Thank you for your understanding. Now please get to the point.
I have been working with schizophrenic patients for a number of years, and I have established that deleting the memory also causes the symptoms to disappear.
Deleting memory? Schizophrenic? What are you talking about?
I'm talking about a treatment that would turn your prisoners of war into like-minded allies. With regard to your own people, I'm talking about a treatment that would liberate them from erroneous ways of thinking.
Kindly continue.
The race to conquer the human brain, as well as the nuclear race, will determine our future. It looks as though the communists have already made a start.
If we want to be fast and efficient, we have to learn from our enemies and forget morality and ethics. And as long as we continue to stir up fears of the Red Menace, we'll have the population on our side.
I assume the CIA already has the green light from Washington for this research project?
We have found a Canadian university hospital where we could start the program outside the US.
Here in Canada?
Gentlemen, in my view, intervening in the processes of the human brain does not contravene the Hippocratic Oath. Hello, Thomas. How are you today? You can look at yourself in the mirror, Thomas. Do you know what what day it is today?
What is the name of the street where you go to school? You aren't going to school these days, aren't you?
All these questions are hard work. Would you like to go back to sleep? After only 12 weeks of induced deep sleep coma and just a few sessions of shock treatment, this patient has almost reverted to childhood.
Are you going to tell me why I should report this as a great success?
It shows that we are on the right path. While traditional psychoanalysis removes one layer at a time, with my treatment we drill straight through to the innermost core of the patient.
And then, doctor? What do you hope to find in the innermost core?
How did Aristotle put it? A blank slate, an empty space upon which nothing has yet been written. A tabula rasa. Soon we begin phase 2.
Phase 2?
Psychic driving, depatterning and reprogramming. Starting with a clean slate. That's what you've been waiting for, isn't it?
You love and respect your parents and your country. You are proud to be an American. You are willing to do everything in your power to preserve our fundamental values. You love and respect your parents and your country.
It appears then that the regressive state persists for longer than we expected. Stop all medication for the moment.
Excuse me, doctor, but I'm not sure the patient can take that.
I'll take responsibility.
Dr. Cameron, Agent Klein, FDA, you as the president of the American Psychiatric Association might be able to help me with your colleague, Dr. Reich.
Dr. Reich? No, he was never a member of our association, no. I only have a fleeting knowledge of his absurd theories.
But wouldn't it be logical to say that these theories represent a danger to the moral fiber of American society?
They even reduce themselves to misting and spraying unwitting American citizens as they walk down busy streets in very poor neighborhoods. MK-Ultra and Monarch mind control experiments have produced many assassins known as Manchurian candidates, one of the most recent being James Holmes of the Dark Knight Rises conspiracy, which was a mass shooting taking place at a purple and orange movie theater in Aurora, Colorado. Purple, or ultraviolet, is the chosen color psychology representing the psychedelic psyche, or the mind, which is why we find the ultraviolet in psychedelics. Psyche, coming from the Greek goddess Psyche, whose symbol was the monarch butterfly, and whose color is purple or violet. Psyche is depicted on the Olympic medals, and you'll notice the purple band attached to the Olympic medal containing the image of the goddess Psyche, whose color is purple. And we all know about the certain massacres and certain events that have taken place at the Olympics as well. Probably staged. Probably most likely false flag attacks.
You know, the purple above the head, the crown. We have the
which is why purple is a royal color. The Tyrian purple, the royal color of Phoenicia.
Right, the green is in the heart, and the yellow is in the belly. So that shows right there the spirit going into you know, through the heart into the belly.
Spirit into matter.
But yeah, that color of purple, we were talking about that the other day. There was something else. They made that from some sort of rare animal that is only there, right?
Yeah, it's a mollusk, a type of
snail.
A type of snail, and it produces this purple dye. It's only found in that area, and it's really hard. It's a really rare commodity to come by. So that's why it's a royal color, because only the royal elites could afford, you know, to get this, could acquire this dye. And again, that goes back to the royal color, which is why obviously it relates to the crown chakra, because that's why it's the royal color of ancient Phoenicia.
Right, and Roy is the king.
Yeah, Roy El, which El was the god of Phoenicia, the god king, the Roy El. But yeah, that goes back to the Phoenicians were the purple people. But yeah, so the purple is the combination of red and blue, the red and the blue pill taken together to get the purple, or the two halves of the season, which in between the red and the blue in astrotheology makes the purple. That line in between is the mixing. It's the purple. It's that unified balance between the two.
Nice. That purple, because it was so rare, couldn't make it everywhere where there were kings. So then the kings, especially of Europe, we know those red capes that the kings then had. They went to red as the royal color. And if you look now, yes, and the fairies had the color of blue. So the female color was actually blue, and the male color was red. And they turned it around on us. You know, we dress the boys in blue, and the girls in red and pink.
They combine, and at that middle point there is the purple. That is what many ancient royal bloodlines, as well as ancient royal cults, will always wear the crimson and the purple. The crimson, purple, Tyrian purple.
Yeah, you see it in old churches on stained glass windows are all purple and gold. That's interesting.
Purple and gold, which is very... Well, essentially, those are the two colors of mind control symbolism. Colors of mind control symbolism. Because they come from the Royal Dutch House of Orange, which is related to the House of Windsor. You know, they're all essentially the same family bloodlines, but the royal purple, when you start to really understand the purple and the orange, you will never look at Hollywood the same way again. You'll realize that all the movies are, especially the very esoteric ones, they always show you the orange and the purple color scheme. Or the orange and gold, they go together. But those essentially, they come from, orange and purple are the colors of Cana Phoenicia, the colors of Saturn L.
Yeah. Oh, purple, yeah, purple, I remember now.
Orange is the esoteric color of warning in the ember months of the year, such as November and December, when the sun has gone into its ember state of the year, which is at its low point just before it dies its death at the winter solstice, where it will then be reborn again at the spring as the color green, in the green spring of fertility. So the ember months are when the sun has become ember or amber orange, which is the sun's warning just before it dies and then will be reborn again. So the orange is the color of warning, as in the amber alert, as in code orange, which is the state of alert for terrorist threats, which is a stage just below red alert, which is the highest state of warning. James Holmes studied temporal neuroscience and was obsessed with Batman and the Joker. Joker's colors are purple and orange, which are the colors of royalty. The Royal Dutch House of Orange. Dutch East India Company. In Batman's city of Gotham, Batman's parents were murdered in a public shooting, which took place at the Monarch Theater, which harkens a striking resemblance to the James Holmes shooting, which took place at a theater with the same colors as the Joker, orange and purple, which is related to Batman's city of Gotham at the Monarch Theater. To go deep into this rabbit hole, I suggest checking out True Theory's video series called The Dark Knight Rises. No conspiracy, just True Theory. I'm going to post a link to that in the video below, and you can look into that for serious details, for a serious rabbit hole to go down, to really grasp and understand all of this material. To understand this, we have to understand predictive programming. Alan Watts states, things or ideas which would be otherwise seen as bizarre, vulgar, undesirable, or impossible are inserted into films in the realm of fantasy, where when the viewer watches these films, his or her mind is left open to suggestion, and thus the conditioning process begins, through subverting the conscious mind and entering into the realm of subconscious, through entertainment, or entertrainment, as I like to say. These same movies, which are designed to program the average person, can give the discerning viewer a better understanding of the workings and the plan of the world agenda, if one becomes conscious to the patterns, the numbers, the symbols, and the iconography being used through this media manipulation. You can catch on to it, you can start to see the clues, and you can follow the trail, and you can call out these things that are happening, especially these false flag events. You can call them out as they come, which are being dismantled by the day now, which once took us years and decades to be able to unravel, are now taking a mere matter of hours in order to call out the bullshit of the programming used in these events, such as the Boston Marathon, such as Sandy Hook, such as the 9/11 attacks, which were foreshadowed in Hollywood media decades before the actual events took place. In cartoons like The Simpsons, Family Guy, which has predicted Bruce Jenner transformation, it's predicted the 9/11 attacks, it's predicted the Boston bombings, it's predicted the suicide of Robin Williams, it's predicted the death of Joan Rivers, it's predicted all of these things in Family Guy. So somehow Seth MacFarlane must be very privy to what is going on with these planned, staged events. Don't ask me how, because I'm not sure how, but I know he has direct knowledge of these events. And he even states that he miraculously missed the plane which flew into the towers. He miraculously missed the flight that was supposed to be in the events of 9/11.
There you were. You were booked on the flight, I think, from Boston that hit the South Tower.
Mm-hmm.
And you didn't get on it. Why?
A combination of two things. I was giving a lecture at my college the night before and went out with some of the faculty afterwards and had a few pints. And
so you got drunk?
Yes. And coupled with the fact that my travel agent had listed the flight on my itinerary as leaving 10 minutes later than it did. And I was generally late for flights. I'd missed a lot of flights prior to that, so it wasn't like it was anything crazily out of the ordinary. But I got to the counter and I said, yeah, I'm booked on flight 11, and the one behind the counter said, sorry, you're too late, they just closed the gate. And I said, all right, well, I'll take the 11 o'clock. Went into the lounge, fell asleep, woke up about 45 minutes later to a commotion, and the first plane had hit, and sat there and watched the second plane hit, and they announced what flight it was, and I turned to the guy next to me and said, my God, that was the flight I was supposed to be on. I was late, I missed it.
What an incredible thing to realize has just happened to the plane you should have been on.
Yeah. I mean, there was you know, that wonderful unity that we've since completely abandoned. I've never felt more than when I was standing at the bar at 9 o'clock in the morning and you know, saying to the bartender, hey, you know, can you pour me a shot? And he's like, yeah, here you go, it's on the house. And you know, that feeling that must have been what, you know, our grandparents felt during World War II, where you know, this is, in that moment, everything was, we're all the same. But I was you know, I'm not a fatalist. I was not shaken to the core in the way that I changed my whole outlook on life, mainly because I had missed planes before, and you know, coincidences do happen. I mean, a day before that incident, I could have been crossing the street 5 minutes earlier and gotten hit by a car and never known that I just missed it.
Predictive programming works by means of propagation of the illusion of an infallibly accurate vision of how the world is going to look in the future. Through the circulation of science fiction literature, the masses are provided with semiotic, or symbolic, intimations of coming events. Within such literary works are narrative paradigms that are politically and socially convenient to sociopaths. This brings us to the Mothman prophecies, which were said to foresee or foreshadow certain catastrophic events in the near future that would take place involving critical pieces of architecture, which is similar and exactly mirroring the foreshadowing of the events of 9/11 in such Hollywood media that implied people would be sacrificed in an architectural catastrophe long before these events unfolded. The sphenoid is called the keystone of the cranial floor because it locks everything into place. It resembles the head of a key as well as the 11th letter, K, which Aleister Crowley added to create the spelling of the word magic with the K on the end, because the 11th letter is in the direct middle of the Hebrew alphabet, which consists of 22 letters. The letter K again represents a key, the key aspect of the Roman letter Chi-Rho, or the labarum, the Chi-Rho, or Chiron, or Charon, which is where the pharmaceutical prescription symbol comes from the Chi-Rho. Chiron is known as the wounded healer because he deals with healing over traumatic aspects of our psyche. Chi-Rho means hand, which is why the Romans used the Chi-Rho symbol, which we can associate with the hand of power. Which is exactly why we find the hand in the HBO series Game of Thrones. The hidden hand. The hand that feeds. Bats are mammals of the order of Chiroptera, whose forelimbs or hands formed webbed wings, making them the only mammals capable of true sustained flight. El is the Hebrew name of God, so God is found in the mid-L symbolically in the human skull, which is where we find the sphenoid bone, which connects to the temp-L region of the brain, the temp of L, and the temporal lobe, which measures our sense of time, or tempo. I should explain here that L is also the Greek god known as Kronos, who became the Roman god Saturn, who is known as Father Time, which is where we get chronology, or the measure of time, or the tempo. The 11th Hebrew letter is K, or Kaf, meaning the palm of the hand, implying productivity and potentiality, but it also means coerce. Kaf is also the 22nd letter of the Arabic alphabet. I should mention here that there are 22 paths in the Hebrew Kabbalistic tree of life. Kabbalistic Cabal, which is a small, organized group, a secret society, if you will. A cabal. Kabbalah, which was, I noticed it's the very origin of the inverted pentagram. Kaf can be phonetically linked or pronounced as calf, which reminds us of the biblical golden calf. Kaf is etymologically linked with Keter, or the crown chakra, and crown comes from Keren, or Karen, meaning horn, which is why Jesus wore a crown of thorns, and has horns on his head in the Shroud of Turin. Turin, with the root of Taurus, Torino, the Taurus bull, who has horns on his head, a crown of horns on his crown. Because El, the Hebrew god of the Bible, had horns of a wild ox, and was always depicted as a bull, the bull god. El, Cronus, or Saturn, was the most high of the Bible, and thus wore the crown, which comes from the word crone, or Cronus, who was the old crone. The crown, or Karen, comes from Cronus, and corona, which comes from the sun. A corona is a halo, a crown. The etymology of crown comes from Latin corona, a gaseous envelope of the sun and other stars. Hence, a crown symbolizing the rays of the sun. Corona and crown come from Greek koroné, meaning anything curved, a kind of crown, which comes from the curve of the golden rings of Saturn. Saturn, who was known as Lord of the Rings, and is also known as the Greek god Kronos, or Father Time, who gives us the word chronology, crown, coronation, corona, crone, which is exactly why all who wear crowns are literally cronies. Kronos, who in ancient times was known as the best sun during the golden age of Kronos, who was the king of the age because he emitted a glorious halo. Halo comes from Greek halos, meaning disk of the sun or moon, ring of light around the sun or moon, or in other words, the golden rings, which rivaled or tempted our modern sun, today known as our Son of God, the temptation of Jesus, the Son of God. And this is exactly why to this day we still pay homage to this best son by wearing golden wedding rings as well as earrings. In the ancient Canaan Phoenician city of Byblos, also known as El Jabal, Saturn or Kronos was the king of Byblos, or the founder of Byblos. Kronos was known as the god El, the Most High, and was described as twin pillars, or twin towers. The number 11, because the two L's are even. They are parallel to one another. They are parallel. They are literally a pair of L's. Which is why today we had the Twin Towers until they had to fall. in order to unite and come together as one.
Following that, I started getting these weird occurrences with the number 1111. I don't know if do you know, have you looked into much with the 1111 yourself? Do you know about it?
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, to set the groundwork for where I'm coming from, obviously I've got a few facts here that I'd just like to say, because obviously it's the basis for a lot of my work.
Yeah, sure.
And obviously this number, this 1111 is it seems to work itself into a lot of things. I mean, predominantly the first thing is the universe itself, and obviously on the 11th of August 1999 at 11:11 a.m. there was a total solar eclipse that was observed through Europe. And if you move that further on the end date, December 21st 2012, the end date of the main calendar, the winter solstice, which is when the calendar ends, is at 11:11 a.m.
So I've heard.
So obviously, so we've got this effect where the universe is ringing these numbers at us, you know, in accordance to consciousness and stuff.
Yeah.
And when you look at it in an astrological sense, with the precession of the equinoxes and the 26,000 year cycle of the Earth wobbling through the 12 signs of the zodiac, we're said to be moving into the new age of Aquarius, and Aquarius is the 11th astrological sign. And so, getting further into it, you look at the numbers of 2112, 2012, and you add all those numbers up, and you get an 11. And then you look into the sun, for instance, and the sunspot cycles are 11 years, and basically everything that you can just keep finding these 11s out of things. And you could argue that are you looking for them, but basically when it's that amount of things within the universe, it's not like I'm looking for them, because they are there.
Yeah.
You can't deny that. And so then you start moving into the numerology of it. And for instance, if you get 1111 and you multiply it by 1111, you get the number 1234321, which is a pyramid. Okay, so you've got a pyramid numerology that you can get out of the 1111.
Backtrack on that a little bit and take it a little bit slower for us again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if you got the time code 1111 and you multiply it by the same thing, so 1111 times 1111, you get the number 1234321.
Okay.
So if you imagine that as a visual, you've got a pyramid.
So one step up, that's number one. Then you have two, that's two steps up. Is that what you're going at here?
Yeah. So essentially, because you've got the 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1. If you would plot that on a graph,
right,
on X and Y, you'd have a pyramid.
Interesting.
And the same decreases. So if you've got 111, and you times it by 111, you get 1, 2, 3, 2, 1. You get a pyramid, whichever way you look at it. Anything with a base of 1.
Interesting.
And so then, if you look at the 11 itself, and in binary, an 11 stands for a 3. So obviously you've got a trinity out of it. Do you know what I mean? So if you were to convert it to binary, it would mean it'd be 3. So essentially, then if you look at this idea of the trinity with it, you know 33rd degree Masons and the 33 that goes around. Obviously, if you turn that into the trinity and you divide 33 by 3, you get 11.
That's interesting.
So you start seeing these 11s, as I'm saying. So then you move on to recent events, and you get to September the 11th, 2001, right? And you realise that the building was stood like an 11. The two towers stood like an 11.
Indeed.
And then you've got 9/11, which is 9 plus 1 plus 1, which is 11. And then you realise that September the 11th was 111 days until the end of the year. And then you start thinking about the first plane that hit the World Trade Center, and it was Flight 11.
There you go,
Right, and the total number of crew on Flight 11 was 11. And then you look into it further, and the New York State was the 11th state of the US Constitution. Right, and so then you start thinking about where September the 11th stands in year as far as years are concerned. And September the 11th, 2001 stands 11 years from 2012. Right. And there's an author called Jose Arguelles. He wrote that from 1992 to 2012 would be in a period of May of No Time, the time of no time, which was a transition of the ages kind of period in which, basically world disasters and tension would be on the up and rise constantly. And this period of no time was 1992 to 2012. And so 9/11 in September the 11th, 2001, was 9 years from the start of no time, 11 years till the end of no time. So synchronistically it was placed bang on where it should have been. And so then you start thinking about, was 9/11 an event that was either, was it as Jose Arguelles would put it, was it an inevitable event? Inevitable event. Was it designed by the universe for it to happen as it did?
Yeah.
You look into it further, and World Trade Center commenced building in 1966 and finished building it in 1977. So it took 11 years to create as well.
Yeah.
So you can move on from that, forget all that for the time being, and then you can get to September the 11th in history. And on September the 11th, 1990, at 9:09 p.m., that's 11 years prior to 9/11, George Bush Sr. made his very first speech entitled "Towards a New World Order" in the UN, at the UN. So this was 11 years prior. And then if you take that back 60 years, so you go back to September the 11th, 1941, you'll realise that 60 years to 9/11, that was when the soil was broken for the Pentagon.
Pentagon, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And so you've got this date, September the 11th, again running through this kind of, the nasty war machine of America, if you want to call it that.
Exactly.
When it comes into other significant events, for instance, when you think about America and NASA and stuff, the very first shuttle that got to the moon was Apollo 11.
Yeah, there you go.
And then, for instance, in Great Britain, I'm sure I think it's celebrated around the world actually, but on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, we celebrate Remembrance Day, in which we honour our war dead, but it's on an 11/11, and it's basically the Queen and a load of other people taking poppies to a cenotaph, which is an obelisk essentially.
Yeah.
So, little strange events going on all over the place.
Indeed.
I mean, talking about the Queen moving into royalty, and this is where I'll lead much deeper into royalty later on. But basically, if you look into the history of the word crown and the royal crown, the word crown was derived from Anglo-French word called couronne, which is derived from Latin for corona. But the year that the word crown, was first established was in the year 1111.
Huh, really? That's interesting.
Right.
Huh,
So,
wow.
you can't just say that these are coincidences. All of these things that are kind of connected up, and I get to a point where at first I thought there were coincidences, but then you think, what is this thing called chance?
Yeah.
What is it?
Indeed.
So anyhow, that's the groundwork for 11. And then this is where I'd started seeing this time code 1111 on clocks and stuff, and this is when I started getting this flood of information. I don't know where I've been receiving it from, but I've been receiving it from somewhere recently. I don't know what it's all about, to be honest. But basically, sorry.
No, I just wanted to say it's interesting, and to some extent, I think that this is in a way information that wants to get out. I think it's kind of a self-containing awareness within itself, meaning that it is trying to reach out and teach us how things are interconnected. And I think that numerology and so-called coincidence or meaningful coincidence, synchronicity, is a perfect way to demonstrate to us that everything is interconnected. And I think that there are so many levels to all of this. So what we're beginning to discover are some of the most, in a way, actually obvious and very clear signs of this. But I would imagine that this is something that actually runs throughout exactly everything, if you have basically the amount of time to study something or look at it in close enough detail.
I mean, the thing with all the 11s for me is essentially, I come from the viewpoint, I believe in a mind before matter universe.
Yeah.
Everything stems from consciousness. Consciousness precipitates matter, not the other way around, as scientists would have you believe it.
Yeah.
And I mean, the way that I can, kind of prove that to myself and hopefully to others is that, I don't mean to be crude about this, but when, for instance, a man is sleeping and he has an orgasm in the middle of the night, right, the process that has created that is not any physical action, it's all stemmed from thought.
Yeah.
And so if you think about that, then obviously that thought has then created the ability to create life.
That's
if
right.
you understand where I'm coming from.
Oh
and
yeah,
so,
definitely, exactly. It's a very good point.
that for me is the proof that everything is a mind before matter universe. You know, you can create life with thought.
Yeah.
You know, so that means that everything that you're looking at essentially is consciousness.
Mm.
And that's my way of like that's where I come from with a lot of this. And given the 11s, you know, connected with the Pentagon and connected with the 9/11 like World Trade Center disaster and everything, that to me is indicative of someone else trying to hijack consciousness. I don't know what it is, but for me there seems to be some kind of other side of things that are hijacking this number for themselves.
And the most amazing part about this whole thing is that it instantly came to me in a flash of inspiration when a friend of mine showed me the image of what the sphenoid looks like. And before that, I had never even heard of the sphenoid bone. So it all instantly just hit me like a lightning bolt of inspiration when as soon as I saw it, the very moment that I saw that image. Special thanks to Christopher Lord, True Theory House of Wisdom. I'm going to include links in the descriptions below. Thanks for taking the time to cover this article with me, and I'll see you soon.